Hello. This happened to me a few months ago. I just needed to share it with somebody. It all started at my friend's party. He's an artist who rented out a loft in the industrial part of town. If you can picture what a place like Detroit looked like back in the 1920s, that's what this area looks like. A bunch of old turn-of-the-century factories crammed into 10 blocks. Most of them lie abandoned. So, I partied a little too hard that night and decided to crash on the couch of the loft. I woke up around 4 a.m. The sun wasn't out yet, but you could still make things out in the dim blue light. I went to the bathroom, carefully tiptoeing around people that were passed out on the floor. As I was taking a piss, I looked out of the bathroom window and saw the panorama of deserted urban decay. I remembered how much I liked places like this. It was so dark and devoid of life, and strangely serene. I went back to the couch and tried to fall asleep. After 45 minutes of staring at the ceiling, I decided I didn't want to be there any longer. So, I swallowed my pride and decided to wake up my girlfriend and beg her for a ride. Since walking around vacant streets at this time was not an option. And being an awesome girlfriend, she was totally cool with it. She told me she would be there in about half an hour, and that she would give me a call when she was outside. My phone died 10 minutes later, so I decided I would sit by the window and watch for her car. I sat there for a while. Eventually, my eyes started getting heavy, and I began to doze off. A crashing noise outside woke me up. It wasn't loud, but loud enough to snap me back into reality. I looked out the window and scanned the area, but didn't see anything. However, across the street from the loft, near a mountain of garbage bags, and one of those enormous dumpsters, I did see a computer and a monitor smashed against the floor that hadn't been there before. When my girlfriend arrived, I went downstairs to greet her. Just as I was about to get in the car, I remembered a friend of mine who'd blown out his power supply. So I decided to walk over to the dumpster and see what I could salvage. The monitor was worthless, but the tower seemed to have suffered almost no damage, so I put it in the back of the trunk and drove off. About a week had passed and I'd completely forgotten about the tower, until my girlfriend called to let me know that it was still in the trunk and that she wanted it out. That night, I brought it home. Before I took it apart, I decided to hook it up to my monitor to see if it still worked, and to my surprise, it did. It ran Windows XP, and it looked like it had been wiped clean. I decided to do some searches for words like tits and pussy in hopes of finding some secret stash full of weird deviant porn the previous owner had forgotten about. Morbid curiosity, I guess. But my searches came up with nothing. There were no picture files. Then I decided to search for movies. One came up. It was a .avi file inside a folder titled Barbie, hidden in the Windows System32 directory. So, I played it. This is where things get disturbing. The movie was about an hour long, and it was made up of what seemed like raw exported footage. The footage was of a woman sitting on a chair, talking against a white backdrop. I skipped through most of the movie, and it was all the same continuous shot. I decided to sit through the footage to find out what she was talking about. 15 seconds into it, the audio became extremely bad, and her voice was drowned out by a harsh, static background noise. I couldn't make out a thing. I imported the footage into Final Cut and tried to mess with the levels to isolate her voice. It helped a little, but I still couldn't hear what she was saying. I was intrigued now, and began to really pay attention to her face and body language. It seemed like she was being asked questions, because she stopped at times to listen, and then continued talking. About 15 minutes into the footage, her face began to redden and contort, as if the questions were bothering her. But she continued to answer them anyways. Shortly after, she started to cry. She sobbed hysterically for the duration of the film. One of the few words I could lip read was skin. She repeated this word many times throughout the footage, and at one point she even pulled on the skin from her arm and mouthed the word. She seemed to be extremely unhappy with it. It kept building and building for about 40 minutes. She was crying so hard she could barely look at the camera. She stopped at this point. The rest of the footage was just her crying, with her head down. Oddly enough, she didn't seem to get up or move. The screen just faded to black. I was fucking dumbfounded. I played the whole thing through many times that night, trying to find inflections and nuances in her movement that would reveal anything else about what was going on. I felt so dissatisfied. I wanted to know more. That was when I noticed there was about 10 more minutes left on the timeline after the screen went to black. 2 minutes passed in the darkness. There was more footage. The footage was extremely shaky, nearly unwatchable, and depicted a pair of legs walking along train tracks. My guess is that the camera was accidentally left on as it was being carried somewhere. The person in this video walked along the train tracks for about 6 minutes, then turned into the forest and walked over what looked like foliage, flattened by a piece of plywood. The person continued this makeshift plywood road until the clip ended. My heart started beating with excitement, because there were train tracks a few miles away that looked very similar to the ones depicted in the video. I had to check this out. I called up my friend Ezra. He's 6'4", 250 pounds of mostly muscle. I convinced him to go on a little adventure with me. Now, I'm no pushover myself, but if I was to go wandering in the woods, looking for God knows what, some extra muscle couldn't hurt. The whole idea of investigating the video had me so excited I couldn't sleep. The next morning, on a sunny Saturday, I took my flashlight, camera, and 7-inch K-bar knife with matte black finish and sharpened back swedge and went to pick up Ezra. When I got to his house, he wasn't even awake. When I woke him, he was pretty mad and told me to fuck off. I was already packed and mentally prepared to do this myself, so I decided to go through with it without him. I parked my car at the train station, took a look at my stuff, and hopped onto the train tracks. After walking for about 2 hours, I saw a broken piece of plywood, and my knees almost buckled with excitement. I searched nearby foliage, and there it was, a little plywood trail leading off into the forest. I walked slowly along the trail, paying close attention to everything. I would stop occasionally, kneel down, and listen for anyone or anything. But it was quiet. This was one of the most nerve-wracking things I've ever done. I did not know what to expect at the end of this trail. The dense tree line gave way to a little island of grassy field, and then I saw it, a house being consumed by the forest. From the look of it, no one had lived there for 20, maybe 30 years. I got out my camera and snapped a few pics. A few yards away from the house was a tool shed made of rusty sheet metal. I just sat there among the trees for a while, absorbing everything. I didn't want to go into the open field. I had a bad feeling that something would see me. It took me a while to muster up the courage to go inside the house. The door was partly opened. I pushed it in with my flashlight, and it was revealed that the inside was actually very well lit. I put the flashlight away, got my camera out, I took a few more pics. There was no furniture. The floor was riddled with bricks, wood, and other rubble, and some of the walls had huge holes in them. When I went in further to explore, I saw some things that I didn't pay much mind to in the moment, but now that I think about them in hindsight, they greatly disturb me. The first thing that seemed a little odd was that one of the doors in the first room, that I presumed led to the basement, was a little too new to be in this house. It was also the only door that was locked. Also, when I made my way up to the second floor, I saw some chairs and a fold-up table, also seemed to be a little too new to be there. But what disturbed me the most was the bathroom. The dust on the mirror had been wiped away, and in the bathtub I saw a clear plastic tarp that still had water droplets on it, from when, I presume, it was last washed clean. That was when I heard something moan really loud. I jumped the fuck out of the second-story window and ran back to the tracks. Halfway there, I realized that the moaning was most likely just a water pipe expanding or contracting. That little moment of relief gave way to grave horror when I wondered why the water would be running in an abandoned house in the middle of the fucking woods. It's been a little more than 2 months since this happened, and I haven't gone back there, nor do I ever plan to.